All right, so now we go to our last thing on the agenda for this episode today. And might I say the best thing on the agenda for our episode today? It's the top cornerbacks in this year's NFL draft. We're going 5-1. We're going through their pros and cons. We're going through their grades. And the reason we get those grades is because of Alex's great formula that I swear every time we have ranked a certain draft class, he talks to me about adjusting. So I never know when it's different.
Who knows what's going on? Who knows?
I really don't. I pay no attention to it.
I don't even know. So who knows?
I just want to rank my guys.
Let's go.
Let's do it. Starting out with number 5. We actually just had trouble with this earlier in the episode, but it's okay. What? Keely, right? Keely Ringo out of Georgia, a sophomore, 6'2", 205 pounds, had that very famous pick in last year's national championship and returned it for about 60, 75 yards of a touchdown. His pros, it's going to be one-word things. For a lot of these other guys, I have stats and long explanations of their pros and stuff. For him, it's very simple. Size, speed, instincts. Boom, done. Gets rid of the pros there. His cons, his deep pass coverage. Ringo actually allowed the most deep receptions this past season among quarterbacks in PFF's top 10 list. And that has to do with his change of direction. It's pretty slow, and he has trouble keeping up with fast linebackers. And in this case, that's why a lot of wide receivers are able to get deep on him. His athleticism, now we go into the grades. Alex also loves these halves. I can't do it with these halves. Just do whole numbers, man.
It's all out of 10.
It's impossible. Yeah. Athleticism, 8.5. Instincts, 6.5. Man coverage, 5.5. Zone coverage, a 6. His size, a 9.5, being 6'2". I mean, it's pretty good for a cornerback. For a total of a 7.0, which puts him at a late first-round grade. Although I can definitely argue that it'll be more early second round. But again, can't argue with Alex's formula. So that is number 5.
Stop arguing.
Keely Ringo.
All right. Moving on to number 4 here, a personal favorite of mine. Probably my favorite player, not the best player, but my favorite player on this list, Cam Smith out of South Carolina, junior, 6'1", 188. His pros really is that he's a really flexible corner. He plays in the inside in the slot. He plays on the outside as well. This past season, he played 357 snaps on the outside, 196 of them in the slot, and only allowed 211 yards on 302 snaps total. And coverage snaps, obviously. He does a really good job reading QBs, reading their eyes, and he can hijack routes, either stopping routes for no gain, forcing incompletions, and has reasonably good ball skills and does get a couple picks from time to time. And then his cons are he could be over-aggressive in coverage, does get some penalties that he's going to need to clean up in the NFL that are definitely going to be called, even the ones that might be missed in college. And then his tackling is a little bit inconsistent, so that's something that he's going to need to work on as well. Wrapping up receivers in the NFL and in the run game is something that's really important for corners, so especially in the slot. So if he is going to play there, that's going to be something to watch out for. Our grades for him: athleticism, a 7, instincts, a 6, man coverage, 8, zone, 7.5, and size, 6.5, coming out to a 7.0 grade as well. Also a late first round prospect.
All right, we continue with our prospects. We now move to number 3. And I want to say that out of the 3 positions we've done, out of wide receiver, linebacker, had trouble there for a second, and out of the cornerbacks, would you agree with me, Alex, that the cornerbacks, the top 3, are the most solidified group out of those 3 positions that we've done, or no? Would you say wide receivers?
Yeah, probably.
I would say so, right? Because
it's also the strongest position.
True. Yeah. Wide receivers, you could say that Johnson's clearly the number 1 for most people. However, after that point, it kind of gets a little scrambled for everyone. Yeah. I think definitely it's scrambled here with the top 3, like where they rank. But the top 3 is always consistent as it's the same guys. The rankings of them is a little different. Maybe this guy, number 3, they put at number 1, whatever. But it's normally those top 3 are always there. So that's what I wanted to mention. It's Joey Porter Jr. at number 3 for us. He's 6'2", 196 pounds out of Penn State, a junior. His pros, he reads the QB really well. He's able to jump in front of wide receivers to break up passes after seeing where the QB's decision is. If he fakes right, goes left, he's ready for it. He's also really fast. He's able to keep up with most of the wide receivers in college football that he guarded. And then just the one con we have is, again, another guy who this is, I think, consistent. I think we have couple other players, or at least one more, I think that has this con as well, is that he sometimes gets a little handsy with wide receivers, which gets him a holding call. And that's something, you could definitely fix in the NFL, or maybe even get more aggressive there, because the NFL might be actually a little bit more lenient with those type of calls than they are in college. As we know, grabbing, touching, pushing off of each other is kind of just a part of the game in the NFL. People get physical, they get handsy. So that actually might be something that gets called a little bit more in college than it does in the NFL. But anyway, athleticism for him now, it's a 7 going to the grades. Instincts an 8. Man coverage and zone coverage knotted up at 7 for the both of them. And then 8.5 for his size, which we get past that 7.0 mark. We go up 4 points, 0.4 points, I should say. And he ends up with a 7.4, which is another late first round type of pick. So you see the consistency here of the late first round. Where are the Giants located in this first round? Late.
Yeah.
So, guys have already been marked. I saw, Bucky Brooks's maybe most recent of NFL.com mock draft. I think he had Joey Porter going to the Giants. So most of these, if not all of these guys, besides maybe the number 1 and number 2, will be available at this pick for the Giants late in the first round. So definitely keep an eye on all of these names.
Yeah, I think 1 and 2 are probably going to be gone in the top 12, 15 at most. I think Porter Jr. has about a 50-50 chance of being there. And I think Smith and Ringo have probably a good 80% chance of being there if I were to be betting today on that. So in case you're interested in what I would bet currently. All right, moving on to number 2, we've got Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. He's a sophomore, 6'2", 201. He's just really, really athletic. He's a great tackler. He's got great length as well. He can mirror wide receivers. He's great pass breakups, has an eye for the ball as well. Does get a couple interceptions from time to time. And he really is one of these elite cornerback prospects that we've seen in recent years, and could potentially, I think a lot of people interchange 1 and 2 here. And I think after the combine, especially where he could put up some really strong numbers, he could potentially kind of solidify himself as that number 1 guy. We have a comp for him actually as Darius Slay of the Eagles, formerly of the Lions, obviously a very solid corner, except for when he gave up a Kenny Golladay touchdown that will live in infamy. So I guess take that into account in case you're interested. Going into his cons, his strength, even though he is 201, which is reasonable for a corner, his strength does sometimes seem to be a little bit on the light side, not exactly where you'd want it to be. But obviously, we may be proven wrong at the combine, so we'll have to wait and see. And then our grades for him: athleticism 8, instincts 8, man coverage 7.5, zone coverage 7, and size a 9, giving him a 7.8 out of 10, which is a mid-first round grade, and also our highest grade that we've given to a prospect so far this year. But will that be beaten by the number 1 guy? Yes, it will be. And I'll send that over to Josh.
Yeah, just one thing with Gonzalez that I think you missed the stat about his tackling. Only missed 3 of his 61 tackles attempts this past fall.
Missed that.
No, it's all good. Something to note. And we got more stats here for this number 1 guy who I've been floored with ever since I watched his tape. And I mentioned it again, not to reference the interview again, but I mentioned it to Bobby to see if he checked him out. It's Devon Witherspoon, the 6'1", 180-pound Illinois junior. Absolutely amazed with this guy's tape. I mean, I could talk about him for the entire length of how long this episode has gone so far, but I will not do that. I will not bore you to death on how good Witherspoon is, but I will tell you right now, he is very good. He has locked down man coverage. He was targeted 63 times, but allowed just 22 catches for 206 yards with 3 interception and 14 pass breakups. Oh, and he didn't allow a single touchdown all season. Played man coverage more than any other cornerback in this year's draft class on 560 of the 738 defensive snaps that he played this past fall. It was a man coverage play. Change of direction, very good. Feet, very good. Quick, and his length, obviously, at 6'1", 180. His reach is pretty long. He's able to knock down those passes and deflect them out of the receiver's hands. However, we do have a few cons here for Witherspoon. His weight, he is a little bit undersized. 6'1" is a good height, 180 pounds. If you want to play cornerback and get physical with wide receivers, yes, you're pretty fast at that light 180. You're able to jump around a little bit more. But if you want to kind of pack on that muscle, he might have to do that to get ready for the NFL. Very physical on plays, which sometimes leads to pass interference calls. Do you see the repetition there from earlier guys we talked about? So another guy there. I'm not going to go over the whole thing with a difference again, but you understand it. It could be different from the NFL compared to college with those calls. And then finally, only 1 year of elite production. Prior to this season, Witherspoon, I'm sure, were known by draft experts, but not known by the public audience and the college football, NFL, big mainstream media as a whole until this past year when he absolutely locked down everyone he covered and didn't allow a single touchdown. No one knew his name. I'm sure draft experts did, but now we do. So our player comparison for him, Witherspoon, is Asante Samuel Jr., and now we go into our grading system. His athleticism, an 8, instincts, an 8.5, man coverage, a 9, which we already talked about why, end zone coverage, 7.5, but the size, because of that 180 pounds wise, 5.5, which is the lowest grade out of all of the sections. But it gives us, even with that 5.5, our first prospect, obviously, like Alex mentioned, our top prospect when it comes to grades so far, this draft class, when it comes to the grading system, but also our first 8.0, our first prospect to reach the 8 of Alex's unbelievable, amazing formula. So it's an 8.0 for Devon Witherspoon, our number 1 cornerback in this year's 2023 NFL draft class.